So you've acquired some armor and you've noticed the new warmth tag that shows how good your armor is at protecting against the cold. Trouble is, you don't really know what the number means, nor do you know which armors are best for this stat. So let's make it very simple for you. There are 3 classes of warmth in Skyrim, which we're going to be calling cold, normal, and warm. Ideally, you want to be wearing warm armor pretty much all the time, even in Skyrim's less cold parts, because the nights can still be very chilly and reduce your maximum health. Now, if you want the best light armor warmth-wise, you're gonna have a rather troublesome time. You see, you can get max armor warmth from fur armor, but fur armor is, shall we say, not great. And unfortunately, fur is the only light armor that is warm until you unlock glass, Stalrim, or dragon scale, which is a lot later in the game. So if you're gonna go light, it may be a good idea to only use fur when you actually have to go into the cold. On the heavy armor side of things though, we're having a way easier time. You see, steel armor also has max warmth, and you can get that at level 2. Specifically, you want to use the steel armor that has Nordic gauntlets and boots, because they have more warmth than the Imperial variants. But if you don't want to wear steel for the rest of the game, what are your other options? Well, you're stuck with steel until either Orcish or Nordic carved appear, depending on your preference, and then you've got Daedric, Stalrim, and Dragonplate, which are all max warmth as well. So it's much easier to use heavy armor to stay warm in survival, but there are of course downsides to heavy armor. But let's talk about how to fix them and address the biggest issue you'll probably face in survival. Carry weight in survival is halved down to 150, and that makes wearing your heavy armor much less appealing. But there are some easy ways to bump up your maximum carry weight and significantly, or completely, reduce your armor weight. First, if you increase your stamina when you level up, you'll get 5 carry weight. Not really worth it in my opinion compared to upgrading your health or magicka maybe, but it is an option. Second, we have backpacks. Much like survival itself, backpacks are a creation that is included for free in the base version of Skyrim Special Edition these days, so you don't need to purchase anything here. Grab yourself a corundum ingot and some leather, or go to a general store and smith or buy yourself a backpack. These give a whopping 75 carry weight, plus some have some extra effects like bow damage or fortify lockpicking. Then, if that's still not enough carry weight for you, head on over to Solitude here on the map, and then come to this position. This is the Steed Standing Stone, and on survival, the Steed Stone is actually slightly nerfed to only give 50 carry weight compared to 100 in the base game, but it does have something else you'll want as well. It makes your equipped armors no longer reduce your movement speed and also no longer weigh anything, so your 64-pound set of steel armor is now no longer slowing you down or taking up valuable inventory space. Personally, I don't think there's any other standing stone that is that valuable for survival specifically. The XP ones are kind of just for impatient people, but the Lord Stone does carry a valuable alternative if you really like magic resistance. However, near the start of the game, when you're broke and you need to carry everything back from your adventures, I think the Steed Stone is the better option until you get your actual perk later on in the game, which removes weight from the armor you're carrying, but that will be a fair bit into the game usually, at which point you can switch to the Lord Stone. With this setup, you'll have 50 plus 75 more carry weight, so you'll have 275 total, which is a significant boost from the base 150 carry weight. But now you've got a problem. How are you going to get all the way to Solitude at the very start of the game? So, you haven't quite unlocked Solitude yet, and even if you did, there's no fast travel in survival mode. Outside major cities in Skyrim, however, you have a carriage driver. He can take you to any of the notable cities in Skyrim. And Winterhold. It costs money, but it is a pretty small fee considering the amount of time this is going to save you in the real world for not having to skedaddle up to Solitude just to get a standing stone and then come back another 10-minute journey to continue in Whiterun. Leveraging these is a huge time saver over the course of the playthrough. I mean, actual hours is saved by using these, so definitely make use of them. But be warned, do you see how some of these are more expensive? That means they are to a non-walled settlement, and as such, they won't have a carriage driver who you can use to go back. So it's a bit of a one-way trip as far as the carriage is concerned. So what about when you can't use Skyrim's very own Uber drivers to get around? You are going to get very, very sick of walking in this game mode with no fast travel. I mean, it's like a 30-minute walk from Markarth to Riften. This map is quite huge, especially for a 2011 game. So what can you do? Horses, of course. Now, every walled city has a stable where you can buy a horse for 1,000 gold. It's a bit steep, but it is a 21% speed increase, assuming, of course, you're not already running an extremely high stamina build, because I think at that point, your player actually does end up outpacing horses over long distances because of the stamina difference. That probably isn't you, though. Now, if you don't want to spend 1,000 gold, you can, of course, commit a crime and steal a horse, or get one from the Dark Brotherhood questline, or get Arvak from the Dawnguard questline, or you could buy the Wild Horses creation. This will let you get a 250 gold map from any stable master, and it will tell you the location of 9 different horses that you can go and tame. You basically just annoy them until they love you, but they are customizable slightly, and they're immortal, which is a big help in the long run. One important thing to remember about all the horses, though, is that in survival mode you will be fast traveling using only the carriages, which means that as you're exploring, you do need to develop the soft skill of remembering where you parked your horse, because it will just stand there forever until you fast travel somewhere else. This whole thing does make Arvak, the summonable horse, much more appealing, but you do literally have to go to hell and back to get him, so maybe not ideal. Masters. Alright, that was a lot about movement and travel. Let's get into some food related tips. In survival, if you don't eat, you suffer some pretty mean consequences, reducing your stamina, your weapon attack speed, and sneak ability significantly. So you need to try and stay on top of it by eating. But what are the best food options? Well, to my mind, there is essentially 2 best options here, really. First, you have salmon steaks. Salmon steaks weigh 0.1 pounds, and they restore 220 food. This is pretty much the best food to weight ratio in the game, and salmon is quite a common food ingredient to find. Sure, you can get like 380 food from something like cooked beef, but cooked beef is also 5 times heavier. Plus, salmon is just way more common than any of the alternatives. You can fish it with the fishing creation, or just go swimming in warm rivers to find some. Do not go jumping into ice cold water in survival. If you don't know how to deal with that, you will just die. But a good tip is to go to Riften, search all the fish barrels around for salt piles and salmon, and then cook it up. As a little bonus tip, you should do this in regular Skyrim anyway if you want free money. River betties spawn in here alongside the salt piles. If you mix salt with river betties at an alchemist table, you can get a slow poison, which sells for a fair bit of gold. You can also use death bells for this if you don't have any river betties. The other food option is the classic OP vegetable soup. These require 1 cabbage, potato, leek, and tomato, and restore 380 food and weigh 0.5 pounds. Now that is a bit heavy, but the upside is that there's no salt requirement, making it easier to get a lot of them, and the stamina benefit. The stamina per second from vegetable soup actually allows you to essentially infinitely power attack, because in this masterpiece of a game, you actually only need 1 stamina to power attack, and this gives you 12 minutes of plus 1 stamina per second, so you can just absolutely spam power attacks on your way through dungeons, which is very nice if you're going to be going a warrior build. Unfortunately, the health restoration of this food item doesn't actually work on survival, at least not in vanilla, which reminds me, health doesn't usually naturally regenerate in Skyrim Survival at all, so let's talk about how you can bring that back. As I said, natural health regen is simply disabled in survival. You can wait as much as you want, it's not going to regen. So you can only heal using spells, potions, food, or sleeping. But there are some ways to restore that natural health regeneration. First, the easiest option is the Lady Stone, which is located here at Lake Ilinolta. If you aren't using the Steed Stone or the Lord Stone for some reason, you could use the Lady Stone. It'll give you 25% faster health and stamina regen, but you may be wondering, isn't 25% faster than 0 just gonna give me 0 still? Luckily, no. For whatever reason, you'll still get health regen at what I assume is like 25% of the base healing rate. So if you get too battered and you can't get to a bed and you don't want to waste a potion, or you don't want to use a healing spell because maybe you're role-playing a warrior character, you can now wait and restore your health bar again. Great. But what if you're using the Steed or Lord Stone instead? Well, for that, you want an enchantment of healing. Again, surprisingly, it does still work in survival and will regenerate your health passively, saving you a lot of potions. So how can you get this enchantment? Well, unfortunately, it's actually a touch rare. The earliest any item can spawn with this enchantment is level 16, specifically the Necklace of Remedy. If you want basically any enchantment, your best bet 9 times out of 10 is to go to Radiant Raiment in Solitude. There they sell a huge amount of enchanted jewelry, so coming here once you hit level 16 is going to be your best option. You could also consider Fortify Health Regeneration Potions, a less considered option because it is so easy to farm instant health restore potions, but if you ever wondered why the regen potions in particular are so expensive, well, it's because the amount of health they restore over the course of their duration is actually a very huge amount. It's just over the course of a couple of minutes rather than instantly. I wouldn't recommend buying them because they are quite expensive, but you can make some with some relatively common ingredients like garlic, vampire dust, Nordic barnacle, Namira's rot, Luna moth wing, and juniper berries. Oh, and Argonians get his skin once a day, but you probably don't want to play those. Oh, but we were talking about food, and I had another point to make there. Silly me, let's head back. There's another kind of food you might want to make in this game. Hot soups. Take basically any base game soup item and make it with some fire salts and you get a hot version of the soup. Hot soups are vital for surviving the coldest areas in Skyrim because they are the only items in the game that actually immediately undo cold damage. Other items and effects exist to slow down how fast you take cold damage because basically it's a scale of 0 to 1000 and every second you spend in cold environments makes it go up, and things like your armor warmth will slow that down. But when you find yourself at 200 points of cold and you're in the middle of combat and you won't have time to wait at a fire and you've taken significant health damage, the only way to fix yourself instantly is to eat hot soup. A lot of people struggle fighting in really cold areas like say Alduin's battle at the throat of the world, and they need some hot soups in situations like that to keep themselves fighting without being frozen to death. Unfortunately, fire salts are notoriously annoying to find in high numbers in Skyrim and are also pretty expensive early to mid game. So if you see a fire Atronach in the wild, be sure to kill it and take its salts. And if you do happen upon some in the world or loot, please do not sell them. They're probably the most valuable consumable item you will ever own in survival because they are the only way to make these soups, which are the only way to instantly fix cold. And don't go wasting them on making a magicka potion either. But hot soups don't just undo cold damage though, they also protect against it, giving 25 warmth when eaten. With your good armor, you'll have 131 warmth, which is out of a max of 206, so the hot soups are helping pretty significantly there. But there's another item you might want to keep in mind to help with warmth. The Humble Torch. These give 50 points of warmth, which is just a little bit worse than your entire main chest and leg piece of your outfit. Alongside your good armor, that would be 181 warmth out of 206, just by wearing good gear and holding a torch. Playing as a Nord, you'd pretty much be at max warmth. But they don't last forever. A torch lasts only 4 minutes, so you'll want to stock up on these to stay warm. Except, at least in vanilla, torches are kind of dumb. If you unequip it and re-equip it before the light goes out, it actually just resets the timer. So if you want to kind of just juggle the same torch, just remembering to reset it every few minutes, that would save you a lot of weight because they are half a pound each. The torches aren't the only thing that might be weighing you down without noticing if you're carrying too many of them. Skyrim is one of those games where you find yourself increasingly getting heavier as your adventures continue, and you eventually have a mental breakdown and have to scour your inventory for 20 minutes to try and find what could possibly be weighing you down so much. And then you get to the potions tab and you see just how many restore health potions you've actually been stockpiling for a boss who is never going to come to this game. Survival mode has made that a touch worse. Lockpicks and arrows now have weight, specifically 1/10 of a pound each, which over the course of a playthrough can really add up. So if you've ever been playing survival and found yourself bafflingly over encumbered for reasons you literally cannot figure out, it was probably the 40 pounds of 400 lockpicks or the 90 pounds of arrows you were carrying. For the final two tips, we're going to be talking all about diseases. Diseases are much worse than normal Skyrim in survival. Instead of just being a relatively manageable base game effect that you can cure for free basically anywhere, they now progress over the course of 3 days from the standard all the way up to a crippling variant. Just as an example, the disease called rock joint that you famously get from wolves every time you come into contact with them will make you 75% less effective with all melee weapons if you let it get worse over 3 days. So of course we need to be very, very prudent in curing our diseases. Now shrines used to be the obvious way to do this. They would clear your disease when you interacted with them, but now that's going to cost you 100 gold a go, which could be quite expensive early game. So what can you do early game when you don't want to throw away your gold like that? Well, you could buy a potion of cure disease, but that's probably more expensive, so a better choice is crafting your own. Regardless of your alchemy skill, you will always make a 100% effective cure disease potion, so it's very accessible to all characters. What do you need? Well, there's a lot of options with all the DLCs and creations out there, but the 4 main base game items that you should keep your eyes open for most of the time are hawk feathers, mudcrab chitin, charred skeever hide, and vampire dust. But do not use the hawk feathers to make potions of cure disease. You can actually just eat hawk feathers raw and they will cure disease because that's the first effect of the ingredient. So carrying them around is a good way to save weight because they're much lighter than cure disease potions. Then you have your other 3 options. Charred skeever hide is commonly found in bandit dungeons or giant camps and you can harvest it from these spits. Mudcrab chitin is probably the easiest and most common one. Just go along any river in the game and eventually you'll run into a crab who you can kill and get some chitin from. Vampire dust is probably the most dangerous to acquire, but it's also pretty common. You get it from looting dead vampires, generally the ones you have to kill yourself, because the vigilance of Stendar aren't going to do it for you, are they? But that's all well and good. What if you don't know where any of those are and can't find or afford any in the trader? Well, that's where a particularly useful questline comes in handy. This one is accessible near the start of the game, and it will just so happen to fill your pockets not only with the 4 ingredients I mentioned in the last tip, but also just throw potions of cure disease at you. That questline you might think is Dawnguard, but it's actually the Companions. Located at Jorvaskr in Whiterun, the Companions are Skyrim's standard Fighters Guild questline equivalent, and once you reach the quest Proving Honor, which you have to do like 1 Radiant quest to get to, you'll find yourself coming into conflict with a group of slightly different bandits named the Silver Hand. These fellas are very useful to kill in the early game because not only do they carry a mountain of disease cure supplies, but they also carry silver weapons. Now, silver weapons are quite underrated because they do a bonus of 20 damage to undead enemies. Near the start of the game, that's going to be a pretty significant damage boost when you consider a standard steel sword's going to be doing like 9 to 10 damage. And then you get this silver sword, which will have a similar base damage, but also 20 points to undead. Very handy early on for the rest of the Companions questline and the main storyline in particular. But if you don't want to join the Companions, or you've already completed it and you somehow forgot to loot any Silverhand bodies on the way, there are some locations you can always find Silverhand regardless of that questline's completion. In particular, Driftshade Refuge, located here on the map, and Gallows Rock, located here on the map. Go to these, kill some slightly weird bandits, and you'll get all the disease curing supplies you could ever need. If you want to see part 2, be sure to let me know by hitting that like button, subscribe button, and maybe even leave a comment telling me what you want to know more about so I can put it in the next video. When that video comes out, it'll be on screen right now, but in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.